Today I'm going to feed two corn snakes. Just let people see how they actually swallow prey that's thicker than the width of their throat. So in here I've got a 2.5-year-old corn snake, and I'm going to try feeding him. I tried this about, I think it's 12 days ago when I fed them, and I fed both of them and they both took. This corn snake actually looks like he's beginning to come up to a shed, like to shed his skin. Quite a lot of snakes don't feed at this time because they can't see very well and they feel a bit threatened. When a snake's eating, it's pretty much defenceless because it's basically the food is filling its mouth, so it can't do anything, it can't bite. So I'm going to try them and see how it goes. I've got two frozen then thawed mice here that I'm going to offer to, well, one to this snake and one to the next one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use long tweezers to hold the mouse, and the reason for that is because when the snake smells food, there's a chance when it strikes it could miss, and if you're holding the mouse by the tail, the snake could accidentally grab your hand. Snakes aren't really that clever. They wouldn't realise that I hadn't grabbed the mouse, because it could smell the mouse. It just goes into an automatic feeding response. Yeah, the snake's alive. I'm going to try feeding it a mouse in a minute. Here he comes. He can probably actually smell. I've got two mice that I've thawed out further along the table. You can see he's flicking his tongue. He's probably picking up the scent, so you'll have a good idea of what's coming. I did feed these snakes about 12 days ago on Periscope for the first time. I wasn't sure if it would work, but it went really well. They both fed, and basically we could watch as they swallowed the mouse. So I'm going to get one of the mice and we'll see what happens. So this is a thawed mouse. These mice are bred for feeding snakes. What should happen is he's curious to what this is, and he should be able to smell that it's food. But whether he'll come out of his box is a different thing. So if I offer the mouse, I'm offering it head first so that he'll hopefully grab the head because it's easier for the snake to swallow. If they grab it head first, because the nose is pointed, it's easier for the snake to start to swallow the mouse. If they grab it back end first, it's more difficult because they've got to try and get over the mouse's hips, and the tail and the legs are in the way. Usually if they grab it wrong, or if they grab it in the middle, I think he's going to go for this. If they grab it in the middle, they normally release and work their way around to the head. They gradually learn that it's easier to swallow head first. So I don't know how good or bad this is going to go. The box might go flying. There you go. So he's grabbed, basically instantly grabbed the mouse and coiled round it. So as far as he's concerned at the moment, he's constricting the mouse, saying, well, it's already dead. And what he'll do now is he'll work his mouth until he gets onto the nose. And you can see how he's stretched his bottom jaw. Snake's skin is very elastic, and their jaw bones are not one piece, they're two pieces. So if you imagine your jawbone, and if you feel along, it's just one bone that goes from one side to the other. Snake's jawbones are like two pieces that join in the middle, and there's just like a tendon, or even just skin in between the two bones at the chin. which means that the snake can stretch each side and sort of widen the mouth, and they also drop the jaw. And you can see the neck, it's already a lot thicker because he's beginning to swallow the mouse. So just now he's just taking the head of the mouse. Until recently it was believed that snakes, constrictors like that, this is a corn snake, but it is a constrictor, it's not a venomous snake. It was believed that what they did was they threw 2 or 3 coils around the prey, and then they tightened up, and then when the prey breathes out they tighten up, and they keep doing that, so basically the prey suffocates. But recently there's a new thinking on this, because they squeeze so tightly that they actually stop the blood supply around the body. So it's a combination of asphyxiation and this stopping the blood flow, because it was always sort of wondered why the mice like die so quickly from a non-venomous snake, because a mouse could hold its breath for a little bit of time, but they actually seem to die faster, and they've realised that it's because the snake's stopping the flow of blood around the body, which would also affect the flow of blood to the brain. So it's a quicker end for the mouse. As I've said, this mouse was bought frozen and it's been thawed out, and you can see now that he's working his way around, and he's just getting onto I think that's the nose. You can just see at the right hand side of the mouth. He'll work his head round, and what he does is he releases one side of his bottom jaw and moves it forward and grips, and then releases the other side, moves forward and grips. And it's what they call walking their prey. Hopefully once it gets turned round you'll actually see this. So you can see now that's him, he's got the mouse head on. And as I was saying earlier, the thing about when snakes are feeding, they're totally defenceless. Right now he couldn't do anything. He couldn't bite anything because obviously his mouth is full of mouse, and he's got like tiny teeth, but the teeth are pointing slightly backwards, so they basically grip the prey. So you can see he's released this side, moved forward. He's doing the other side just now, but if you watch the bottom jaw there, he's released to move forward, then he'll release the opposite side and move forward, and this is what they call walking their prey. And you can see he's just stepping along with using his jaws, and he's going to finish this mouse pretty quick. Sometimes when they get to the hips it can be difficult, but this mouse isn't actually that big. So you can see the body, the muscles pushing, so he's pushing that mouse down. So he was fed 12 days ago. Adult snakes don't need fed that often. If the snake's got a good body weight, well, for a corn snake anyway, you can feed them every 10, 12 days. It's no hard and fast rule. When they're babies though, they get fed every 4 days. You can see he's sort of using gravity here to help. He's lifting himself up, so the mouse is sort of dropping down in. But he'll just start to use his body. You can see him doing a sort of S shape. He starts to push. You can see the muscles. I need to try not to move too much because it'll freak him out. That's it. I just saw my hand moving. He's disappeared. You don't want to stress them out when they're eating because it can cause them to regurgitate. So what he's doing at the moment is he's just doing that sort of S shape and pushing. So now you can just see the tail. But I've got another snake that I'm going to feed. I'll just wait until this one's finished. I don't want to move about too much because he could regurgitate. if they feel stressed, they'll regurgitate the prey so they can move faster and get away. So that's just the... Hi Brazil. I'm just feeding a corn snake here. It's just finished swallowing a mouse. You can just see the tip of the tail. But I've got another snake that I'm going to feed. Yeah, he might yawn. That's quite common for them to yawn after they feed. If he does, you'll see the inside of his mouth. He does have teeth, but they're very, very small. Maybe only 1 to 2 millimeters long, but they're very sharp and they're curved backwards, and they use the teeth to grip the prey to stop it getting away. But the main thing, when they grab a mouse or any other rodent, they'll throw coils around it and constrict it. And what they do is they basically tighten up, and when the animal breathes out, they tighten up again, and they keep doing that until they suffocate it. But it's also recently been discovered that they actually stop the flow of blood around the animal's body as well, which means that the animal is killed quite quickly. I lifted my hand, and that's why I shot back in. But I'm going to lift the box. I just need to be careful not to stress him too much. But there you can see, he's already swallowed the mouse. And he's just sitting there wondering what's happening. You can see he's still pushing the mouse in the middle of the picture there. He's still squeezing and pushing the mouse along. I don't know if he'll yawn, but a lot of times they do. It's as if they're realigning their jaws after they've eaten. But what he'll do now is he'll try and find somewhere to hide. It's not a good idea to handle your snakes after you've fed them, so once I pick them up, I'll just be putting them back nice and gently. I'll get the other snake and I'll feed her. So this is a 2.5-year-old corn snake, and he's just finishing swallowing that mouse. When they're feeding, they're a bit more nervous. So, hi Kim, you just missed this one. I've just fed him a mouse. So I'm going to pick him up and put him back. I'm going to bring out the female, and I'll try her. So the last time I fed them, both of them fed. Sometimes you can get a bit stressed if they're sort of in not their normal environment and out in the open. But he's been okay. He took the mouse pretty much straight away. So I'll just let him move about a little bit, get the mouse further down before I pick him up. He's actually beginning to look as if he's going to shed. So he's beginning to dull down. So he can smell the mouse that he already had because it was on the table. That's why he's flicking his tongue. He's just wondering if maybe there's another one. Oh, a little piece of sawdust was on the mouse. That's what that is that he just went over. So now he's coming over to me. When I stand up, you'll probably see that he jerks back, but he can still smell mice, so he's thinking maybe he's going to be lucky and get a second one. There actually is a second one further along the table, but it's not for him. So, okay, yeah, he can pick up the scent. What he's doing now is he's trying to figure out where it is, and the snakes have got a forked tongue for a reason. When they pick up scent in their tongue and they flick it back into their mouth, they've got an organ in the roof of their mouth called the Jacobson's organ, and they can actually detect whether there's more scent on one side of the tongue than the other. and it gives them a direction to go when they're looking for prey. So he's done. That mouse is now pretty much in his stomach. So I'm going to pick him up and I'm going to go and get the other snake, and then I'll try feeding her and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so this is the female corn snake. I'll just guide her towards that entrance and then she should go in. Normal. You always look for somewhere dark. I've got a little spotlight on the box to make it a bit easier to see, so she'll go in here. Last time I had her out, she hardly stayed in the box. It's because they're very used to being handled and they're used to being out, so I'm just touching the tail here, speeds her up. All you do is just touch the tail. So what I'll do is I'll wait until she turns. I'm sure she already knows there's a mouse here. She's a bit more timid when it comes to feeding, but she fed last time when I tried it, so hopefully she'll go this time. They were last fed about 12 days ago, and I put her in the box because basically she wouldn't stay still if I put her on the table without the box. Snakes like to hide, they like to be covered, they feel threatened if they're out in an open space, especially during when it's light, like during the daytime. So I put her in the box so she feels more comfortable. And it makes it easier for me to talk, and I don't have to keep picking her up and putting her back and picking her up and putting her back. But normally what happens is when you put them in, here she comes, they eventually come round and they sit with their head. She can smell this mouse, that's why she's flicking her tongue. So she's a more timid snake than the male that I just fed. I was actually surprised she fed last time. But this is the mouse that I've got for her. This was frozen and then thawed. We'll see. I'm trying to get her to take it by the head because it's easier for her to swallow. I did have problems with her when she was really young, and she wouldn't feed. If she'd been in the wild, she would have died, I'm pretty sure, because she just was not a good feeder. Okay, I'm going to try just leaving it, because normally that's what I do when she's in her own tank. I just leave it, and she'll... No, you can't choke them. I'll see what she does with this. Normally what she'll do is she'll push about and then eventually she'll work her way around to the head, because obviously if she bites it in the middle she can't open her mouth that wide. She should work her way along until she gets to the head, and then you'll see her pressing and then she opens her mouth. She just feeds differently from the other one. The other one, he grabbed it and coiled, which is okay, she's grabbing it, but she's grabbed it at the wrong place. I mean, she will figure it out, but I mean, she's 2.5 years old and she's still grabbing the wrong bit. But you can see she will. I just hope she doesn't go in the box. If she sees me moving, she will go in the box. But you can see already she's worked her way round to the head, and what she'll do is she'll get the nose, because it's obviously the smallest part, and then she'll move her head down. And what she's doing is the snake's bottom jaw, it's 2 separate bones, and they can release and move forward each side. So what she's doing just now, she's released this side, move forward, gripped, and then she'll release the other side, move forward and grip. And now she's doing this side, and doing the other side, and doing this side. It's what they call walking the prey. Yeah, you would think that she would choke, because I mean, if you look at the size of that mouse, I mean, it's totally filling her throat. But snakes, their windpipe actually comes up into the bottom of their mouth. Like our windpipe just stops at the back of your throat. Yeah, I'm glad she's feeding, but I'm trying not to move. She's more nervous than the male. So yeah, their windpipe comes up into the bottom of their mouth. So even when their mouth is full of food, they can still. She could. How often do they eat? These ones are 2.5-year-old corn snakes, and the last time I fed them was 12 days ago. I sort of, as a rough rule of thumb, about 10 days, but it doesn't have to, it's not an exact science. If the snakes have got a good body weight, they could go longer. They could go 2 or 3 weeks between feeds. So it isn't. You don't have to say, right, okay, it's got to be exactly every 10 days. When they're babies, they get fed every 4 days because they're so small, and they eat pinky mice, which have basically got nothing in them. Like this snake will digest this whole mouse, so they digest the skeleton, like the bones, so they get calcium. They digest everything, even the teeth. They can digest tooth enamel. So they've got very, very strong stomach acid. So as I've said before in different videos, that the snakes eat the whole animal. Every single part of that gets digested. Yeah, they do. Roughly it takes maybe about five days. But you can see how far she's stretching that bottom jaw. It's a bit like putting an orange into a sock. The skin just stretches. Yeah, they do excrete. I'll maybe touch on that in another video. I'm just sort of doing these things at random, just to see if people are interested in it. If I get a lot of people interested, I'm quite happy to go through. Well, she does this a lot. She's using gravity to try and help get this mouse down. So she does this every time. She lifts her head up, and then she's still, the lighting isn't good, but she's still using the muscles in her body to squeeze it down. But she's always done this ever since she was really small. When she was really small, she would lift it and she would have her head pointing to the ceiling, so that the pinky would drop in, basically. So they don't all do that. He did lift his head, but she does it a lot more. Try and move the light a bit without freaking her out. Yeah, like I was saying, after about 5 days she'll have totally digested this mouse, and they do poo. I used to do a lot of talks in Scotland to the general public, and to, well, basically anybody that was interested, but a lot of different places. But the ones that I liked doing the best were the ones where people really didn't know anything about snakes, and but they were interested to learn about them. Like this, like how does a snake manage to breathe while its mouth is that full? I mean, you can see she's getting over the hips of the mouse now. I mean, it's a lot wider. When she opened her mouth there at the top, you could just see some rows of teeth, but you can't see the teeth, are that small. Okay, I'm getting a good view of the mouse's butt. So, yeah, this is her getting over the widest part. So, she's nearly there. So what she's still doing is release one side, move forward, release the other side, move forward. You can see there. But you can see just how elastic the skin is. I mean, she could take a mouse quite a bit bigger than this. But I just offer mice that are about the same thickness as the thickest part of the snake's body. The reason for that is the bigger the prey is, the longer it takes them to digest. If it takes too long, the mouse would start to rot inside the snake's gut, which isn't good for the snake. It could kill the snake. So I just offer the same sort of thickness as the body, and they take about 5 days to digest. I'm going to try and move the camera. The thing about snakes is they're very sensitive to movement, especially when they're feeding, because at the moment she's pretty much defenceless. If she felt threatened, she would probably regurgitate the mouse so that she can get away, because when she's like this, she's very vulnerable. But you can see how that skin's stretching. Yeah, well, she's pushing it with her muscles. You can see the sort of contraction. She's doing that sort of S shape. She's finished with the using her teeth, and now it's just the body. She's just like squeezing it down, and she'll push it down until it gets into the stomach, and then it'll sit there for, like I said, maybe 5 days. So you can see the lump moving down. If we're lucky, she might yawn. The stomach's about, it's just over halfway down, maybe 2/3 of the way down the body. Okay, she's probably going to go in the box because she feels more secure, but the box that I've got, it doesn't have a bottom on it. Yeah, there she goes. So I can lift the box to let you see her, but I just don't want to freak her out too much. As long as you stay still, I mean, they don't really bother, but it's when you start to move. And she is a bit more nervous than the male. He doesn't really seem to care. He's quite happy just to eat. But you can see she's doing this sort of S movement, and what she's doing there is she's using the muscles in her body to push that mouse down. And like I said, once it gets into the stomach, she'll stop doing that. In about 5 days roughly from now, the mouse will be digested. Just drop the tongs. Yeah, for anybody that missed the beginning, I've just fed this corn snake a mouse, and I use tongs to hold it. Yeah, the mice are bought frozen. Snakes are deaf, but they feel vibration. She would have felt that when I dropped those tongs and hit the floor. She would feel the vibration, and again, that can feel like a threat to them because they know something's there. They're not really the most intelligent things, especially at feeding time. If they can smell food and they see movement, it's quite easy for them to grab your hand by mistake. They don't mean to, they're just thinking it's food because they can smell food and they can see movement, and they add 1 and 1 and get 3. And that's the most common time for anybody to be bitten at feeding time. So she's still pushing that down. I'm going to lift the box. You'll probably see she'll duck in as soon as she sees my hand coming over. They don't like things going, oh, she's actually doing that bad. They don't like things going over their head because that's a sort of natural threat, like a bird. So if you look at her body, you can still see she's doing that. She's pushing that mouse further down. Yeah, I'll try and do a video just to show where they poo from, because again, this was a thing I always asked people when I was talking to people that didn't know anything about snakes. The first thing I would do is let them touch, but before I even did that, I would ask people, what do snakes feel like, and just get the general reaction from the people that were there. I used to talk to like preschool groups, school groups, youth clubs, old folks homes, vet schools, did some talks at zoos. So I've sort of spoke to all ages. I even did a talk at a deaf school, which was unusual. That was quite interesting, because basically I spoke and then they had somebody doing sign language, but it went really well. The people were really interested in touching the snake. Excuse me. So what she's doing now is she can still smell mouse, so she's flicking her tongue, thinking maybe there's going to be another one. And she's actually heading towards the kitchen. I had a piece of kitchen roll that the mice were sitting on, and she's picked up the scent of that, so I'm going to move it, because she would eat another one. Snakes are opportunistic feeders. They would eat if they get full, but I mean I'm pretty sure she would take 3 mice like the size that I just showed. I'm sure she could take 3. But like I said, the thing is, if I feed it a lot, it takes a lot longer for the food to be digested. So I don't want any problems with mice rotting in her gut. So I just feed 1 mouse. You see she's still pushing that down. She's getting close to the stomachs. It's just slightly further down than where she is. I did some other periscopes. So I was just talking about the basic layout of the inside of a snake. She's actually only got 1 lung. Snakes originated from lizards, and a lot of people think it would work the other way. You'd start off as a snake and then gradually grow legs, but it actually went the other way. Lizards found that legs got in the way when they were chasing prey, and gradually the legs got shorter and shorter until eventually they got rid of them. You do get what they call in UK slow worms that look like snakes, but they're actually lizards that don't have any legs. And the way that you can tell is lizards have got eyelids and they blink. Snakes don't have eyelids, they never blink. No, it's not empty. You've got the lungs. Well, the lung. I mean, they did have 2 lungs, but gradually what happened was, to get everything into that shape, the 1 lung basically got shorter and shorter. Now inside this snake there's like a stump, just nothing. It's just a little blob, which used to be where the second lung was. And then they've got 1 long lung that is pretty long. It goes down its body. It's so they can take in enough air. They can hold their breath for a long time. They can also go about underwater. Yeah, she sees me moving the camera, that's why she's backing off. Yeah, I mean, they've got organs further up. The stomach's sort of at the bottom. They've got a lung, obviously they've got a heart, they've got a pancreas, they've got a liver. So the snake's body, they've got round about 300 vertebrae in their back or in their body, and that's why they're so flexible. That's why they can bend, like she's looked round and everything like that. So it's because they've got so many bones. But if I put another mouse down, she would take it. So I'll be feeding her again in about 10 days. So I think I'll probably do this when the snakes are due to be fed. I'll stick the camera on and people can see it. I lifted my hand there to move the camera and she saw it, and that's why you just see she suddenly turned and stopped, because she's thinking, okay, something moved. No, normally what they do is in the tanks they've got I've got it set up. They've got heat mats. It's like a heat plastic sort of thing it's set to a thermostat, so it goes to a certain temperature. And what she'll do is, or both of them, they go onto the warm side. They go onto the warm side, because the enzymes in their gut have to be up to a certain temperature before they kick in to help break down the food. If she's too cold and she swallows a mouse, she won't digest the mouse. It would just rot inside. So she would seek out, she's still pushing the mouse, you can just see that little bulge here, just at the back of the neck. Well, on the second loop if you like. Yeah, so she would go on the heat and she would just basically lay there, and it helps them digest, but she wouldn't move very much while she's digesting. So that's the second time that I've fed the snakes on Periscope, and it's went pretty well twice, so that's quite good. But the idea of doing this was just to let people see how snakes swallow. I've actually got quite a lot of snakes. I've only got two now. I used to have, I live in Denmark now. I used to stay in Scotland, obviously. Well, I'm Scottish, as you can probably tell from the accent. I had a lot of snakes at that time, a lot of different species, and I used to breed them, so yeah, during the breeding season I had over 100 snakes, which took a lot of time, a lot of cleaning out, a lot of feeding, a lot of watering, so but yeah, I had a lot of different things, ball pythons, corn snakes, king snakes, milk snakes, western hognoses, Argentinian rainbow boa, Brazilian rainbow boa, Dumeral ground boa, black pine snake, Everglades rat snake, probably more. No, I've scared. I've had some that were quite, people would say aggressive, but I don't see them as being aggressive. I see them as being defensive. If a snake is lifting its head up and hissing and things, it's because it feels threatened. It's not because it's not deliberately trying to scare you. Well, it is trying to scare you in a way, but it's not because it's aggressive. It's being defensive. I've been bitten by 3 snakes. No, this isn't a python. This is a corn snake. And she's, I don't know what she's doing. They just, all that is they just expel air from their lung. But what they also do, even like corn snakes, like this snake, the male, the one that I just fed, the orange one that I fed before this, he still does it. They buzz their tail like a rattlesnake. They just vibrate it really fast, and it does a little. It does, even sitting there, it would give a buzz sound. But if you imagine if that was in like, if it was in the wild and it was in like dead leaves, and it was buzzing its tail, it would actually be very loud. And all they're doing is, it's the same as the rattlesnake. They buzz it, and they're hoping the noise is enough to scare anything away. The difference with the rattlesnake is it's got venom, whereas these snakes don't. They would just normally try and get away. I mean, that's normally what snakes tend to be, pretty secretive things. When people get bitten, it's either the people have been stupid and try to pick them up, or they don't see the snake and they stand on it by accident, or they get really close and don't know it's there. The snake will strike out just in defence, because venomous snakes, the venom isn't really designed for biting people. It's designed for digesting prey. When a venomous snake bites a mouse or a rat, the reason it does it is it's easier for the snake. There's less chance of the snake being injured, because all it does is strikes, hits the prey, injects venom and releases, and then it leaves the prey to basically crawl away and die. No, I wouldn't handle venomous, I've never kept venomous snakes, I've never kept large snakes. I prefer to concentrate on the ones that aren't really much of a problem, they're pretty easy to keep. But I've been bitten 3 times, but only once was really hurt. One really hurt. I got bitten by a black pine snake. Again, it was my fault. I opened the tank and I was going to change a water dish. And the setup I had for that snake, it was like a long, it looked like a log, pine, P-I-N-E. It was a pain snake for me because it was about just over 2 meters long, and she was hiding inside this log. No, it's just my accent, it's okay. She was hiding inside a log, and I was going to change the water dish, or change the water in the dish, so I opened one side of the vivarium, looked in the log. Because she was a jet black snake, I couldn't see her. I couldn't see what way she was pointing, but I thought, I'm only changing this water, I'll be okay. I put my hand in to get the dish, and she flew out of the log and grabbed my hand. She thought she was being fed, and that's the worst type of bite to get from non-venomous snakes. When they grab you and they think they're actually getting fed, because they'll automatically grab and constrict. And the more you struggle, they just think it's food, so they'll just keep constricting. And if it's a really big snake, like a Burmese python, you can be in serious trouble. The pine snake bit me, and everything you read that says when you're bitten by a snake, do not pull away, because their teeth are curved backwards, so they sink in and then you're sort of hooked on. It's a bit like Velcro. Well, with these snakes it's a bit like Velcro. The black pine snake, it was a bit more than Velcro. So she grabbed my hand, and like they say, don't pull away, but it's like if somebody flicks their hand up in front of your face, you blink, you can't help it. Yeah, it's coming back, it's back. She'll probably find that box. This is what they do, they find somewhere dark and they just go in, she'll go in there and hide. They don't like being out in the open when it's daylight. So she's just having an inquisitive smell inside there. She will be able to smell the snake that I had in there before, so she's sort of curious, because I don't keep snakes together. They're not sociable animals. In the wild, they live independently, and they only meet up to mate, basically. So I don't keep them together. It can be stressful if you keep two snakes together. Sometimes she ate a mouse. Yeah, like I said, I try and feed just the same thickness, so that once she's swallowed it, you don't see it. But I mean, if you want, I've got some pictures that I can show you what happens if you overfeed a snake. I've got a picture of a really obese corn snake. If you look at the shape of her body, it just comes along and it just nicely tapers down to the tip of the tail. It's nice and smooth. Hi. Yeah, I've just fed 2 snakes, so you've missed you've missed the best part. But you can always watch it on replay. The person that was asking me the questions. Oh, yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll do another talk. I'll probably do one just using pictures. Yeah, I hope it was. I mean, this is why I do this. Hopefully, it's interesting and educational at the same time. People learn a bit about snakes. They're maybe not quite as bad as people think. Yeah, she has a nice colour. You won't see corn snakes this colour in the wild. People have been breeding them and coming up with all these fancy. Okay, have a good day, bye. Yeah, they come up with all these fancy colours and patterns, so there's now over 500 different types of corn snake. In the wild, I think naturally there's maybe 3 or 4 different patterns and colour, but now people have been breeding them for specific things. So yeah, she's had her mouse, so she's just going to sit. No, they don't bite. The only way that this snake would bite me is if it accidentally thought that my hand was food. When I feed the snakes, I use tongs, which I dropped on the floor earlier. Well, that was me picking up the tongs. They scraped on the floor. She felt the vibration and she went in. So this is how they sit. They hide and then they sit with their head at the entrance so they can defend themselves if they have to. But when I fed the snake, or these snakes earlier, I used tongs. Quite long tongs. And what I do is I hold the mouse in the tongs so it's well away from my hand. If I use my hand and held the mouse by the tail, there's a chance that she's going to miss and actually grab my hand. So tongs are a good idea. The other thing about using tongs is you aren't touching the mouse, so you don't have the smell of mouse in your hand. No, she's got her own tank that she sleeps in. So yeah, tongs are quite a good idea. The bigger the snake, the longer you want. This is corn snake, so they're not that big, but long enough to keep my fingers out of the way. If you've got like bigger snakes and you're feeding like large rats and things, you can get tongs that basically they've got a handle that looks a bit like scissors, but it's got a like a ratchet mechanism, so that when you grip a rat, which can be quite heavy, you just clip that and it holds. You don't have to like squeeze it and hold it. Feeding big snakes is the dangerous thing, because if a big snake strikes for food and accidentally grabs you, if it manages to wrap round your arms, like so your arms are in against your chest, you're basically dead. It will constrict you because it thinks it's eating a rabbit or whatever it was you were trying to feed it. It'll just constrict and then release, and then it'll realise that you're not a rabbit and it'll just leave you. And it has happened. I've heard stories of things like that happening, feeding accidents. If it's a defensive bite, the snake will strike out and just basically bite and then release. It won't try and coil. So the bite isn't really the thing. When you're talking about non-venomous snakes, the bite isn't the thing to be worried about. It's going to hurt and you're going to bleed, okay, but you're going to live. But if they think they're feeding and they constrict you, if you're feeding big snakes alone, you need to be very careful, because it could be fatal. So I'm going to put her back, and that's basically going to be the end of this scope, I think. So, like I said, I'll probably, when snakes are due fed, I'll just do scopes and let people see it. Hopefully people share and let people know about the stuff I'm doing. I'm always interested in answering any questions, especially for people who are thinking about getting a snake. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again.